Hello, everyone, and welcome to CE Institute. My name is Selena Belisle, and I'm the founder and one of the instructors here. We usually teach paid CE certificate training, but today I'm doing a quick video to tell you about human trafficking and give you some indicators and tips to identify trafficking if you are questioning if there's something illegal going on. You feel it, you sense it. How do you know? Well, let me give you some tips that we've taken from the Department of Homeland Security and so forth on how to identify trafficking and what to do if you do find this. Human trafficking is a form of modern day slavery, okay? Usually an individual is forced in some capacity to perform actions that they don't want to do, and they do not have the basic human right to say no, live independently, or make their own decisions. So in human trafficking, there are two different types, primary types of human trafficking. One is sex trafficking, where an individual is forced to commit sex acts against their will for the benefit of the trafficker. And the second major type of trafficking is labor trafficking, where an individual is forced to work against their will, again through fraud and other types of coercion, where they do not have their basic human rights to say no to this forced labor. Some of the ways that you can figure out if this might be trafficking in a massage or spa environment are through these questions, and let me review these with you. First of all, ask yourself if your coworker or whoever you've seen at the massage or spa establishment, does that individual that you suspect might be trafficked, are they disconnected from their family, friends, community? Do they belong to any organizations like the AMTA or anywhere where they can be social without supervision? And are they able to attend religious services if they are a religious individual? Somebody who's isolated and disconnected from the outside world that's not normal. Okay, we want to make sure that we all have freedom to move about as we wish and do as we wish, and anybody who does not have that ability may be um, a victim of trafficking. Also, if somebody's behavior suddenly or dramatically changes, someone can be lured to the United States or even from like a small town or a city or wherever with great promises. And the way they become a trafficking victim is they were really happy and excited sometimes. Sometimes they're kidnapped and forced, but sometimes they're lured away and then they're kind of trapped. Maybe the trafficker takes their passport or driver's license or identification or credit cards or finances, and they have no financial means to gain independence, to get out of their trafficked situation. So this would cause an immediate change of behavior, or perhaps change of attitude with the victim, of course. Obviously, if the person is engaged in commercial sex acts, if somebody's under 18 years old, they cannot consent to this. Okay, so anybody who's um, engaged in commercial sex acts under the age of 18, that is a victim, okay, and that needs to be acted upon. If the person is disoriented or confused or shows signs of mental or physical abuse, sometimes drugs are used to control victims in human trafficking. So if you see somebody who doesn't know where they are, doesn't know how or why they have bruises, or maybe they're lying about it. If you see cigarette marks, ligature marks that might be around the wrist to restrain an individual, rashes, general lack of congeniality, or somebody who's just not showering or bathing or caring for themselves, could be depression, but it could also be somebody who is a victim of human trafficking. If the person is fearful, timid, or submissive, this also might be someone who is being trafficked, especially if they have some of these other indicators. If they're being denied food, water, sleep, medical care, these are all controlling factors that traffickers use to control their victims. If the person is always supervised by another individual. They can't move about or speak with their free will without having somebody overwatch whatever they do. That's probably another indicator, especially when there are multiple indicators here that you have a trafficking victim. If the person appears to be coached on what they say, if you don't feel what they're communicating to you is authentic, then that again is another indication. If the person is living in unsuitable conditions, sometimes you'll find massage therapists or other spa or salon practitioners living at the establishment. Okay. Each of us should have an independent place to live outside of our workplace. But if your workplace is also your living space, then that might be an indicator that this person has been trafficked. Okay. Does the person lack personal possessions? And do they not, does it not seem like they have a stability or stable position within their life? A person who has no social media, no presence, no physical footprint, no tangible belongings, not even clothes, other than what their trafficker has provided them, that is a good indicator that you have somebody who's a victim. Does a person know where they are, their location? Do they know the date and time? This also goes to their mental fitness. Either emotional abuse can take a toll, they can lose track of these things, and the person could also be drugged. And does a person have the freedom to move about? Can they leave? Or are there unreasonable security measures? They have to get somebody's permission to leave the property. All of these types of things could be signs of trafficking. Okay. There are many different ways that a trafficker will control their victim by instilling fear. It might be through the threat of physical violence to them or physical violence to someone they care about. They could have been brought in from a third world country and told if they do not do what they want you to do, then they are going to harm their family in that third world country. And the victim may believe this, and it may be their reality that actually might be happening. Okay, so that's one of the ways that traffickers control their victims. That's why a victim stays enslaved as well. Unfortunately, that victim might not want to be rescued because they're afraid of what could happen to their loved ones if they do not continue their enslavement. Obviously, physically restraining the individual, the victim, and keeping them under lock and key is another way to enslave them. If you ever find somebody locked in a treatment room, good indicator that they are a trafficked individual. Confiscating their passports and other ID, isolating the victims except for when they want them to perform the labor or sex acts themselves, telling victims that they're going to be imprisoned if they do leave, all types of fraudulent communications that are unethical and untrue is another way. If the victim's like, oh, I can't leave the state, I'll be arrested. How is this about? Time to call the authorities and try and help this victim, not to put them in jail or anything like that, but to truly try and help the victim. One of the ways traffickers often control their victims is financially. So even if the victim wants to leave, they might not be able to leave because they don't have the financial means to do so. There's about 14,500 to 17,500 human trafficking cases in the United States today. And this is a statistic around 2020. 80% of these trafficked individuals are women and children, and globally we have about 600,000 people being trafficked worldwide each year. So what do you do if you suspect human trafficking? You must call the authorities. You should not personally intervene. First of all, trafficking is a felony. It's criminal and people do jail time for it. So you don't want to put yourself in harm's way because the trafficker might realize if they're caught, they're going to jail and they could hurt you to prevent you from alerting the authorities so that they are not caught. Okay, so it is the Department of Homeland Security, the police authorities, all regulatory agencies will tell you, do not intervene when you suspect trafficking. You must contact the authorities. There are professional, trained individuals that know how to work with victims. Sometimes victims will kill themselves once they've been liberated from their traffickers. They don't know how to live life without their traffickers. And so there needs to be a lot of counseling available for the victims. And believe it or not, in the United States, if you were illegally brought here as a crime of human trafficking as a victim, there are um, citizenship programs available to victims as a path to stay in the United States and not be deported. So don't think that if you report this trafficked victim that they are going to be automatically deported to a worse situation. That's not an automatic. In the US, there's multiple departments available to take care of victims of traffickers. So law enforcement is your best call 911. Let them know immediately where the location is. Identify the suspects of who you think is being trafficked, the victim, and if you can also identify the trafficker, that's helpful. Calling law enforcement is your best option. If you have a suspicion of trafficking and you don't want to call your local police department, in Florida, they have a 1-800-96-ABUSE phone number, and the National Human Trafficking Resource Center, where you can ask more questions or get help, is 1-888-373-7888. We also have some resources here if you think you are a victim of human trafficking. You can call yourself the National Trafficking Resource Center, again, 1-888-373-7888 is that phone number. And there's also a website, humantraffickinghotline.org, where you can get that contact information and more. Now this is being recorded, and I'm going to scroll through some of the other websites that you can view about to get more information about human trafficking. Oops, I don't know what just happened to my document here, but hopefully you were able to see some of that. I'm really not sure what happened. All right. And I hope you found that helpful. So again, my name is Selena Belisle. I'm here at CE Institute, where we do teach CE classes, and we hope to see you at the school for education in other topics. And until we do see you in a live or online training, be safe.